Scott has a BS in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. He's got an MBA from the University of Baltimore. Has worked on a number of large projects in Charlotte, including the Concord Mills Mall, the U.S. National Whitewater Center, and the Lowe's corporate headquarters. Phase 3, he's a lead AP. He's a certified professional erosion and sediment control expert, I guess. And lives in Cornelius. He's married with 3 kids and is a member of the chapter and part of our programs and education committee. So please welcome Scott.
Thank you. Yep, Clemson's going to win, just like ASU was. As you can tell, I'm from the South, just above Baltimore. So not really, I got here, I guess, in 1998. I worked most of my career up in the Northeast, any place from Philly down to about Richmond. So worked on small sites with, a lot of commas, because, the cost of construction, size of projects, because it's pre-developed. So really the first big site job I worked on was Concord Mills. I'll never forget the first day that I was here. I flew down from Baltimore for the day. We just started clearing and grubbing, and we're getting ready to move dirt. Get off the plane, I go up there, and Concord Mills is about a 90-acre site. We had about 50 or 60 acres of it knocked down, burning in these big piles that looked like the gates of hell. I mean, it was just, I'm like, I don't really understand what we're doing, but this can't be legal, and I'm leaving right now. So that I realized how long, I've been in construction at 20 years at that point, and how little I really knew about erosion control. Although a few years later, I worked on the U.S. National Whitewater Center and thought I knew everything about erosion control again. And that's a tough site because it slopes towards Long Creek, which is one of the most polluted creeks in the county, and also the Catawba River. And our superintendent that built the project did a great job managing it, but we got to the end and started doing things like the rain gardens, enhanced swales, and we would build them, then have to rip them apart, build them, rip them apart, because we just didn't understand how they function yet. And once again realize nothing about erosion control. From there, as one last parts of the project is the praise and glory for non-participants. I'm going around giving presentations about the Whitewater project, and at the same time I'm starting at Lowe's. And Lowe's has their own corporate department that manages erosion control on all their sites across the world. And you'll see why in a little bit here. And I went up to something called the Erosion Control Association to give a presentation. And they had this thing called a CPESC. I'm like, well, I'll take that. Can't be a big deal. Well, it's like a 5-hour long test. First, it's like 300 multiple choice questions, 6 like engineering problems, and engineering problems have like 6 parts. You get the first part, it just keeps wrong. It just keeps getting wrong. So I remember leaving that test just going, hey, there's no way I'm going back. But I passed the multiple choice part, so I eventually did go back, and I've learned a lot, and I realized I'll probably work my entire career, and it's constantly changing, and you're not going to ever know everything you can about building a building, let alone erosion control. But there are some things that are getting ready to happen here, and I thought they would have happened already. I've taken some classes from NC State. They have a great earth sciences program, and a lot of the changes were supposed to happen in June that they kind of haven't yet, and not sure when they're gonna. But so let me just start with that. Give you a little background. Objectives. What are the current rules? What EPA changes are coming down the road? Why is it important to lead? And why should we all care, basically? Why should we just do the bare minimum? They love using acronyms, and you break them down, they're not really that hard, but it's like a little science. You gotta learn like an RFI is a request for information. Construction people, designers, we use it, like our name, but sometimes you forget what you don't know. National level, we get the EPA. They delegated down their responsibility for managing the U.S. waters to the local states. There's something like 47 or 48 states have their own local departments. Here it's Encinitas. And in Mecklenburg County, we have a very good, very sophisticated local program here. Some counties that maybe are out in, that are more rural, they still use Encinitas. That MPDES permit, that's basically the way EPA controls pollutants that go into U.S. waters. Pollutants could be sediment for a bunch of reasons, and you'll see why a little bit here. BMP, I think we had a presentation earlier this year. I was trying to figure out what a BMP was. It's not one thing, it's a system of things. And as you go through the erosion control process, there's usually a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 plan. Phase 3 is how it winds up. Phase 2 is what happens while we're building the building. Phase 1 is what we got to do to get ready to clear the site. The current rules right now, you basically are taking the water, rain and storm runoff on site, managing, and your erosion control measures have to hold 80% of the suspended solids. That's basically just the stuff in the water. Notice intent, that lets whoever it is, NCD or the county, know that you're getting ready to start work. Your stormwater prevention plan, that's your erosion control plan. Notice of termination is that you're done. You've stabilized the site. You ask the inspector to sign off, and the civil engineers already sign off. The new things that are coming. Effluent limit guidelines. That's how muddy the water is as it leaves your site. They're taking a stance now where it's your responsibility to design it so that when the water leaves the site, it doesn't go above a certain, what's called NTU, you'll see in a second here, but basically how muddy the water is leaving the site. Turbidity, that's how they measure it. PAM, there's a whole bunch of them. It's a powder that there's a whole bunch of different ways. It can be in blocks, mixed with water, that will control, what it does is it controls the NTUs in the water, makes them flocculants, and causes the dropout quicker in the stormwater runoff. NTU. So BMP, it can be your silt fence. Super silt fence is just that there is You got a lot of flow, so maybe you got some chain link things behind it. You got underground storage systems. Your construction entrance, your stone. Your erosion control ponds. They got to have a stick in there, so I don't think you can't see it here, but basically so you know how full it's getting, and when it's time to clean it out, once you get up 2/3 up high that stick, you got to muck the pond out. Grass swales with check dams that slows the water down. The idea is that the water, as it goes slower, the sediment will drop out. Core log, it's like coconut fiber with PAM on it, and what that does, you can see right there the white stuff, as it mixes with the water, storm runoff, it causes the suspended solids to drop out. And there's a bunch of different ways to put it. You can put it on in your diversion ditches in the pond itself. Rain gardens, after we enhanced swales. Those are kind of more after the fact measures. Pre-construction, got to give the inspector at least 7 days. Startup meeting, he'll give you your erosion control plan, and after you got those initial measures in that you've agreed upon, he lets you go forward with the construction, or she. Construction, you got any phasing, the flow, how, where dirt's going to come from, basically your haul routes and all that you identify, and you got to inspect all your erosion control measures at least once a week when you get a 24-ounce, 24-hour storm with half-inch rain, and once as I said before, the site's fully stabilized, you get your NOT. Some problems that people kind of run into typically. They do a horrible job with the paperwork. They don't fill it out, don't do their inspections, don't document what's going on. Note on different areas plan when you move dirt, or when you start disturbing an area and move to a new area. That's called the day. You're only allowed to move dirt and keep it open for 2 weeks. That's called the day 14 rule. And if you think you can get away with it, trust me, the inspector comes out, sees a big giant mound of dirt with 3 or 4 pieces of grass taller than me. Yeah, he knows you have not stabilized that dirt. There's going to be problems. If the inspector sees your log and it says everything looks good, they know that's not the truth, because there's always problems. Not listen to the inspector, just having a bad relationship. They are there as an asset. It's not somebody you hide different things from. Not jumping right on what they asked you to do. I learned at Lowe's, they did this. We had to mark wherever we had spotted pods, trash, or recycling areas, concrete pour areas. That way down the road, if you're trying to figure out, you see a grease spot on the sole, why is it there? It could be, a year after something was there. So managing where you're placing materials and all your different things on site, and just ignoring the rules. So what's going to happen? Right, the EPA has said the NTU limit can be 280, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second here. You can sample it several times a day to get an average. This was supposed to be resolved by 6/29. It hasn't come into effect yet. the way you got to take samples as the effluent or the stormwater runoff goes out of the pond or out of your erosion control measure downstream, and that's how you determine whether you got 280 NTUs or not. Doesn't apply, if you get like a hurricane just came through. So 2-year storm, 24-hour rainfall or greater occurs. But a lot of times you don't know it until, it actually happened. Remember, it was about 2 months ago, we had like 7 or 8 inches of rain in Charlotte, just out of the blue. So also the other part of it is in 2011, which is almost over, this is meant to control the size of sites. So if it's a 20-acre site or larger, these rules apply. And that's, you can say, if you're doing something like a subdivision, you probably can stand to that. But if you're doing something like, let's say, the U.S. National Whitewater Center, you've been out there, that's 50 acres. There's almost no way that you can just go build 20 acres at a time. We still would be building it. In 2014, they drop it down to 10 acres. So, yeah, 10 and 20 acres is the threshold. And it's meant to limit the size of just soil you're disturbing at one time. This is what, as a 9-1, that the limits have not been resolved yet. They're still in a battle, and ironically, they're in a battle with a lot of environmental groups and lobbyists for various reasons. So the lobbyists for the environmental groups, I'm as a contractor, you wouldn't think I'd want this, but I think it's a good idea. But something has got to get resolved, and it's not going to be pretty at first. I think there's going to be some issues to work through, but something has got to come out. Some of the things that I'm worried about with it is the owner is the financially responsible party no matter what. The MPSD permit is given to myself, to general contractors, because we control the site, and the designers, civil engineer designs at least partially how this is going to occur. So what happens if you're going over that number is, what's the reason? Let's say that the contractor's done a perfect job maintaining the site, the erosion control, and doing everything they're supposed to do, or they're not, and the designer designed it right. It's just one of those things I think everybody's got to work through. How are they going to test it? Is it going to be an independent testing lab? Is it going to be the contractor, the engineer? Who's going to be the person to actually test it? If you remember 5 to 7 years ago, stuff like rain gardens, enhanced wells first came out, no one knew how to build them. And really no one knows that these rules are coming. So there is going to be some strife, I think, while the GCs, the designers, and the site contractors learn how to control this stuff and what the rules are. And are any of these things going to be have to be part of your ongoing maintenance plan? So here's NTUs. That still looks pretty muddy. There's 250, you know, so, but it really isn't if you look at it. Trout streams out in western North Carolina, their NTU limit is 10. So if you put clay and sediment, how long does it stay there before it leaves the site? Anybody have any idea? No. 2 hours. A lot of water can leave your site in 2 hours. And that's how they measure it with a NTU turbometer. So one of the ways we can lower the NTUs is by using the flock. What it does, there's the water in the beginning, creates flocculant, and it drops basically to the bottom. That way, when the water leaves your site, it's the NTUs definitely drop and it's more clear. You know, some innovations, if you don't even realize that we've already done innovations. That same erosion control pond 10 years ago, we didn't put baffles in them. A fair cloth skimmer, the way this thing works, floats on top of the water and takes the water that is not as dirty or has higher NTUs in the bottom. So the theory of it is it lets it out slowly. You know, there's going to be emerging technology as this comes out. Don't know what it's going to be. If you can figure that out, you know, I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of industries. You know, this is one of where the guy's treating the water and looks like a potato gun. Does everybody know what that is? Yeah, but you know, he's treating the water and he's creating some storage in that pond so that you got some capacity in your pond before it overflows. So the EPA right now is caught between the environmental groups and lobbyists. Who knows when this can be resolved? Could be this year. EPA is being much more quiet about what they're going to publish because, you know, they've already been over court several times with these. One that PAM is inert, but it still has to go through at least 2 baffles or core logs or something before it leaves your site. And you know, is 280 the right number? Should it be lower? Should it be higher? And that's the basis what the lobbyists are saying right now. Why 280? And I already pointed out a bunch of stuff. So as far as lead, you got a prereq credit. You got one for quality, one for quantity. So this is from LEED. You know, basically just says you got to comply with the NPDES permit. So if there's an update in LEED 3.1, whatever, how does that affect that prereq? It doesn't, because the prereq is to comply with the rules. Quantity control. You know, they quantity and quality, you basically imagine this. You're taking an area that was trees or what have you and knocking it down so you're making the water go across your site faster. And they're kind of saying they treat it the same. The idea is you're trying to make it slow down and control how fast it leaves your site. Quality, one of the strategies they give you is basically having it filter down through stuff like rain gardens and their hand swales. Well, you get about that much red clay on top of a rain garden, it chokes out and the water just fills up like another pond, doesn't work. So, you know, to me, storing the water like with a cistern or a roof garden or, you know, something under a parking lot is a much better solution. It obviously costs more money, but. So how will the new guidelines affect this credit? And that was, yeah. So why you should care. Sediment leaves your site. Here's what happens, you know, it gets into a water body. The extra sediment causes, takes things such as phosphorus or nitrogen and creates algae blooms, as well as clogging up waterways. And the algae bloom eats up the dissolved oxygen in the water, yet a fish kills. So, once again, why should we care? Where's this? Does anybody have it? Want to take a guess? Ireland. Where's that?
It's like my backyard.
Australia. Australia. Where's this? Chattahoochee River down in Georgia. Where's this? South Africa. Where's that? Anyone? Mountain Lake, which has the water that is in your iced tea you just have for lunch. And if you don't believe this happens, just look at the lakes around here. Go down from Lake Norman to Mountain Island Lake to Lake Wylie. They get more brown as you go. So why should people care? One, most and big companies are starting to have their own departments because there are big fines for it. And if you're a national retailer, let's say, the fines are like safety fines where once you show it's recurring, it just starts going up. And these are real checks that were written, settled. I don't know what the original fines were, but that's real money that's gone out the door. You know, this is an area change that's coming, so it gives you competitive advantage. It's the right thing to do. I mean, you could spend all the money you want trying to make your building green, but if it looks like Bangladesh, just down the other side of the property line, to me, you're kind of defeating the purpose of trying to be green. You know, on a personal note, I got 3 kids, as Chris was saying right before he said the Hokies were going to beat Clemson. And they're amazingly healthy. They had no problem. They get a fake sick to say them from school. All this summer, all 3 of them had ear infections from swimming Lake Norman, ready to get antibiotics. It's a problem that will clean itself up because rivers keep moving and they will clean themselves out. But people got to be more active participants in what's going on. Questions? Yes, that's Emily now. We were noodling. Emily caught that one. You know, where you reach down the hole and grab the fish. With that, I'll open it up. Any questions?
I have a question. This PAM, is it a chemical added to the water? PAM.
Polyacrylamide. it's basically a polymer that there's a bunch of different, it comes in blocks, comes in that powder. You mix it with the, the most common use for it is you'll put it on a core log, or you'll put it in a pond that has a lot of sediment in it.
Does it add any polluting properties to the water?
No, it's supposed to, I mean, all the studies that everybody's done has said that it's inert, but at the same time, they're saying, even though it's inert, till we know more, let's make sure we got 2 measures that filter the water before you leave the site. Okay.
So these are federal EPA standards that are being fought on a national level.
Right.
Between the lobbyists and environmentalists. And then once those rules get put into place, is NC Diener automatically going to adopt those and enforce them, or are they going to, I mean, do you know if they're really, what's the status of Diener?
I asked somebody in NC State about 2 weeks ago. EPA is still going back and forth. NC Diener will, have to be forced to do something, which means Mecklenburg water quality will have to do something. It's just a matter of time. Yep.
How do you think the limit of 280 NTUs was established?
No, I really don't. I think it's, it's better than what we have right now. But that's the basis of the argument, is that why 280? So, yep.
Some of the different control measures that you mentioned, are there some that you think were better kind of rain that we've had in the last few days? Some that you feel like we put up and then they let them down so we get a heavy rain?
To me, the more storage you have to hold your water, whether that's through how you release the water out of your ponds, having that capacity there for when you do have flooding rain. Going, gone. All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Since we finished early, hopefully you guys will stick around for a little networking. There's one thing, chapter related, I'd like to point out or make everybody aware of. We don't have all the final details worked out. It's not guaranteed that we're going to give this direction, but there's a strong possibility in the next year and a half that we're going to move to a state chapter.